I worked as a UFO investigator for the government for almost 11 years. That's not what the job was officially called. Officially, I was an intelligence analyst assigned to aerial anomaly assessment. That's the name they used on paperwork. The name they used when Congress asked questions. The name they used when reporters submitted Freedom of Information requests. But everyone inside the program called it something else. We called it UFO investigation because that's what we were doing. Not chasing little green men. Not investigating flying saucers. We investigated events. Things that shouldn't have happened. Objects that shouldn't have existed. Cases that refused to fit inside reality. Most reports were nonsense. Weather balloons. Experimental aircraft. Civilian drones. Optical illusions. People see strange things in the sky every day. Most of them are wrong, but not all of them. The stories I'm about to tell are the ones that still keep me awake. Not because they were dangerous, not because they were violent, because they prove something I wish I had never learned. The first case happened in Nevada. I was 29 years old, new to the program, still skeptical, still convinced every mystery had an explanation. The report came from a military radar installation. 3 operators reported the same thing. An object appeared on radar at 2:14 a.m. No transponder, no flight plan, no military identification. Nothing unusual there. That happens occasionally. What got our attention was its speed. The object appeared 43 miles north of the station. 3 seconds later, it appeared 60 miles south. No acceleration, no transition, just 2 locations. Like reality had skipped a frame. The operators initially assumed equipment failure. Then the object appeared again, this time directly above the facility. Radar confirmed it. Infrared cameras confirmed it. Visual observers confirmed it. The object remained stationary for exactly 12 minutes, then vanished. The next morning, I was sent to investigate. I expected bad data, equipment malfunction, human error, something. Instead, I found 32 witnesses who all described the same thing. A black shape, not round, not triangular, not identifiable. Everyone described it differently. Yet somehow they were describing the same object. One witness said it looked like a cube. Another said a sphere. Another insisted it resembled a tear in the sky. When I reviewed the footage, I understood why. The object didn't appear consistent. Every camera captured something slightly different. Different dimensions, different proportions, different angles, as if the thing wasn't physically stable. Like reality couldn't agree on what it was looking at. That alone would have made the case unusual. Then we discovered the timestamps. Every camera recording showed a different duration. Some showed the object present for 6 minutes. Others showed 10. One camera showed 23. The longest recording showed almost 2 hours. All recorded simultaneously. Every timestamp verified. Every system synchronized. Yet each camera disagreed. That should have been impossible. The official explanation blamed software corruption. The case was closed. But a week later, one of the radar operators called me directly. He sounded terrified, not nervous. Terrified. He asked if I'd reviewed all the footage. I told him yes. Then he asked something strange. Did you count the people? I didn't understand. He told me to review camera 12. Frame by frame. So I did. The next morning, and that's when I noticed it. There were 32 personnel present that night. 32 confirmed. 32 documented. 32 payroll records. But camera 12 showed 33. One extra figure standing near the radar building. Nobody noticed him because he blended into the group. Normal clothing, normal posture, normal appearance. The problem was nobody could identify him. Every witness denied being the person. Security records showed nobody entered. Nobody left. No vehicle. No badge. No visitor log. Nothing. And the strangest part? The figure wasn't watching the object. He was watching the cameras. Every camera, no matter which angle recorded him. His face somehow remained pointed toward the lens. Like he knew exactly where each camera was located. The case was archived. 3 months later, the radar operator disappeared. No note, no evidence, no body. The investigation found nothing. Officially unrelated. Unofficially, it wasn't. Because 6 days after he vanished, camera 12 recorded him again. standing beside that same unidentified figure, even though the recording was taken months earlier. That was my first year. Things only got worse after that. The second story happened in Alaska. A commercial pilot reported strange lights following his aircraft. Again, nothing unusual. Pilots report strange lights constantly. But this report contained details that triggered immediate review. The pilot claimed the lights were matching his thoughts, not his movements, his thoughts. When I first read the report, I assumed fatigue, stress, maybe psychological issues. Then I interviewed him. His name was Robert Jensen. 20 years of flight experience. Clean record. No history of mental illness. No substance abuse. No disciplinary actions. Nothing unusual. He looked exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that sits behind the eyes. I asked him what happened. He told me he first noticed the lights over the Gulf of Alaska. 3 white spheres. Perfect formation. Maintaining distance. Matching speed. Then something changed. He thought about altering course. Before he touched the controls, the lights shifted first, following the route he intended to take, not the route he actually took. I remember laughing. Not because I thought he was lying, because the claim was absurd. He didn't laugh. Instead, he asked me a question, one I still remember word for word. What if they weren't following the plane? I asked what he meant. His answer made my skin crawl. What if they were following me? The flight recorder data complicated things. Every time Robert considered a course adjustment, the lights moved seconds beforehand. Every time, even when he never actually changed direction. The objects reacted to decisions he hadn't made yet. That should have been impossible. Then the passengers started reporting symptoms. Not physical symptoms. Memory problems. Entire conversations forgotten. Hours missing. One passenger insisted she remembered landing twice. Another remembered seeing people who didn't exist. A third claimed the flight crew changed during the flight. The airline dismissed the complaints. Mass confusion. Fatigue. Suggestion. Then Robert mailed me a package. No return address. No note. Inside was a notebook. Every page contained dates. Thousands of dates. All future dates. And beside each date was a number. Nothing else. I called him immediately. No answer. The next day, I learned Robert had died. Car accident. Officially. Except the medical examiner reported something strange. Robert's fingerprints didn't match government records. Not a single one. The pilot we'd interviewed somehow wasn't the man on file. And nobody could explain why. The notebook remains classified. I've seen it twice since. Every few years another date gets crossed out. By someone. Nobody knows who. And every crossed out date matches a major unidentified aerial event somewhere in the world. I wish that was the strangest thing I encountered. It wasn't. Not even close. Because 5 years into the program, I was assigned a case nobody wanted. A case so strange that investigators kept requesting transfers. The file was known internally as Event 17. Not because it was the 17th event, because nobody remembered naming it. Every document simply called it Event 17, as if the title had always existed. The incident occurred in Arizona. A family reported seeing a bright object descend into the desert. Local authorities investigated. No debris, no crash site, no evidence. Case closed. Then people started disappearing. Not randomly. Specifically, anyone who visited the reported landing area vanished within 30 days. First a sheriff's deputy, then a journalist, then 2 researchers, then 3 hikers. The pattern continued. Eventually, federal agencies got involved. That's when I arrived. The location itself looked ordinary. Flat desert, dry soil, nothing unusual. Yet every investigator reported the same sensation. The feeling of being watched. Not from a distance, from directly beside them. One investigator quit after a single day. He told me something I'll never forget. He said, "It feels like something is standing where I should be." At the time, I thought stress was affecting people. Then I reviewed the surveillance footage, and I saw it. For a single frame, one frame out of thousands, a second person standing next to every investigator, always beside them, always matching their posture, always gone by the next frame. The footage wasn't altered. Multiple cameras captured it simultaneously. Different angles, different systems. Same result. One extra person, And the faces. The faces matched the investigators themselves. Every missing person had been recorded standing beside their own duplicate, right before disappearing. The case was sealed, classified above my clearance level. I never learned what happened afterward, at least officially. But 3 years later, I received an email. No sender, no subject, one attachment, a photograph. The image showed 7 investigators standing in the Arizona desert. I recognized all 7, because 6 were officially dead, and the 7th was me. The photograph had been taken 2 years before I ever arrived, and I was standing in the center, looking directly at the camera, smiling, like I knew exactly what was going to happen next. And that's the moment I finally understood something. We weren't investigating UFOs. We weren't studying aircraft. We weren't tracking visitors from another planet. We were documenting encounters with something far worse. Something that wasn't traveling through space. Something that had been here the entire time. Watching, learning, replacing. And the more attention we gave it, the more accurately it learned how to become us. The reason I left the program isn't because I was scared. Not initially. I left because of what happened after the photograph. Because 3 weeks after I received it, someone knocked on my apartment door. I opened it, and standing there was the man from camera 12, the unidentified figure from my very first case. He looked exactly the same. Not older, not younger. Exactly the same. He smiled, then handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a single photograph. A recent photograph, taken through my apartment window while I slept. Written across the back were 6 words. We're almost finished learning you. I moved 3 times after that. Changed numbers. Changed jobs. Changed states. Didn't matter. Every few months, I find another photograph. Always recent. Always impossible. Sometimes I'm sleeping. Sometimes driving. Sometimes sitting alone. And every new photograph contains one more person standing beside me. A person who looks exactly like me. The last photograph arrived 6 weeks ago. There wasn't one duplicate anymore. There were 3, and all of them were looking at the camera, while I was looking away, which means one thing. Whoever took the picture wasn't interested in me anymore. They were documenting the replacements. The photograph with the 3 duplicates should have been enough. A normal person would have burned it, moved on, pretended none of it was real. That's what I tried to do. For almost a year, I ignored everything. I got a different job, different apartment, different routine. I stopped checking the sky, stopped reading reports, stopped answering unknown numbers. I told myself the program had broken me, that years of strange cases had finally caught up with me. Maybe the photographs were fake. Maybe someone was targeting former investigators. Maybe I was paranoid. For a while, that explanation worked. Then the phone call started. The first one came at 3:11 a.m. No caller ID, no number, just silence. I hung up. The second call came 2 nights later. Again, silence. Then breathing. Very slow breathing. I disconnected. The third call changed everything. Because the voice on the line was mine. Not similar. Not close. Mine. The exact cadence. The exact tone. The exact pauses. It sounded like a recording until it answered a question I hadn't spoken out loud. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, holding the phone, listening. The voice said, "You should have stayed in the program." I felt cold immediately, because earlier that night, I had been thinking about that exact thing. Not saying it, thinking it, wondering if leaving had been a mistake. The voice continued. "We could have explained it." I hung up. The phone rang again instantly. I answered. Nothing. The call log showed no incoming call, no number, no record, like the conversation had never happened. The next morning, I found something in my mailbox. No postage, no envelope, just a folded piece of paper. Inside was a list, 13 names. I recognized 7 immediately. Former investigators, people I'd worked with. 3 were dead, 2 were retired, 2 had disappeared. The remaining 6 names meant nothing to me, at least initially. Then I started digging. Every name on the list had investigated the same cases I had. Event 17, Camera 12, the Alaska Lights. Every single one. The names weren't random. They were connected, and beside each name was a date. Some dates were years old. Others were recent. One date hadn't happened yet. My name was at the bottom. The date beside it was 34 days away. I wish I could tell you I ignored it. I didn't. I became obsessed. I started tracking the people on the list, calling former colleagues, checking public records, looking through archive files. That's when I discovered something nobody else had noticed. The dates weren't deaths. They weren't disappearances. They were replacement points. Every person on that list changed after that date. Not dramatically, subtly. A different laugh, different handwriting, different habits, tiny inconsistencies, the kind people dismiss, the kind nobody notices, except investigators. We notice patterns for a living, and the pattern was impossible to ignore. The people didn't disappear. Something else continued living as them. That realization destroyed what little peace I had left. Because my date was approaching, and strange things started happening. Small things first. I would wake up and find objects moved. Not stolen. Moved. Keys on the wrong table. Coffee mugs in different cabinets. Books open to pages I hadn't read. At first I blamed myself. Then I installed cameras. 3 cameras. Living room, bedroom, kitchen. The footage looked normal. Until the 7th night. At exactly 2:17 a.m. Every camera glitched simultaneously. Not static. Not corruption. The footage skipped forward 12 minutes. When the recording resumed, everything was different. My bedroom door was open. The kitchen light was on, and there was mud on the floor, leading from the front door to my bedroom. I lived on the 3rd floor. There should have been no mud, no footprints, nothing. I checked every frame. Nobody entered. Nobody left. The apartment remained empty. Yet the footprints appeared anyway. The following night, I stayed awake, armed, paranoid, watching. Nothing happened. Until 2:17. The lights flickered. The apartment suddenly felt crowded. That's the only way I can describe it. Like invisible people were standing everywhere. Watching, waiting. I heard movement from the hallway. Soft footsteps. Then another sound. A voice. My voice. Coming from inside the bathroom. I knew nobody was there. I had checked. Twice. Still, the voice spoke. I wouldn't open that. I stood frozen. The bathroom door was closed. The voice sounded calm, almost concerned. I made that mistake. I couldn't breathe, because there was only one explanation. The thing talking wasn't pretending to be me. It thought it was me. The door handle slowly turned. Not enough to open, just enough to move. The voice spoke again. You're running out of time. Then silence. I waited until sunrise. The moment daylight arrived, I opened the bathroom. Empty. Nothing. No sign anyone had been there. Except for one thing. Written on the mirror. 3 words. Not in marker. Not in paint. Condensation. Like someone had traced letters with a finger. The words said, "We remember first." I stared at them for a long time. Because I suddenly remembered something from Blackwater Point. Something one of the keepers had written. The 7th always thinks he is the first. Different case. Different file. Same implication. Maybe none of this was new. Maybe this had happened before. Over and over again. The deeper I dug, the worse it became. I eventually found a restricted archive I'd never been allowed to access while in the program. Someone had unlocked it. I still don't know who. The archive contained reports dating back to the 1950s, then the 1940s, then earlier. The oldest file was from 1891, long before aircraft existed, long before modern UFO reports. The description was chillingly familiar. Witnesses reported seeing doubles, missing time, strange lights, people replaced by near-perfect copies. The phenomenon wasn't modern. It wasn't technological. It wasn't extraterrestrial in the way most people imagine. It had always been here. The names changed. The explanations changed. But the pattern remained identical. Every century, every generation, every civilization, something arrived, something learned, something copied, and eventually, something stayed. Then I found the final document. No classification, no author, no date, just a single page. One sentence.